So today I want to talk about an opinion that I've had for a while, and that is that I think that HITSCAN should be the strongest DPS in Overwatch for the competitive game and for the esport. Now, I'm not going to say that, we should have HITSCAN be way better than everything else and everything else should be useless and that projectile heroes should just go down the drain. But personally, I do think that there is a benefit to having HITSCAN be a little bit better, and today I want to be talking about that. And again, this will be my own opinion. Now, I do want to say again right here, if you do have a superior projectile character to a, inferior HITSCAN player, yes, I still want the projectile player to be able to win. But recently with metas like Spam and Hanzo, yeah, I've kind of come to the idea that maybe that's not exactly what my favorite thing to deal with is. With all this said though, guys, let's get started right here. So I think the first thing I want to mention right here is that the Blizzard development team can really balance the game however they want. And when you think about it, they want to try to make as many heroes as good as they possibly can at the same time. That's the best meta possible. But essentially how it boils down to is that they get to pick what's good and they get to pick what's bad. And they just try to swap it up so the metas aren't really boring. That's kind of how it is. It goes from one way to another way to another way. And there you go. But I think that honestly, having HITSCAN be strong is probably one of the most fun metas and one of the most fair feeling metas in the game. And again, they can balance it however they want. I just personally feel like this is one of the best ways to, kind of think about balancing the game. Now, I think the number one thing that I really like about having HITSCAN meta is that I think it really makes a lot of players want to get better at the game. Because if you see a very good McCree or a very good Soldier or even a very good Tracer, if you want to count that, you see a lot of mechanical skill and you see a lot of stuff that you can work up to become better at. And I'm not going to say that being a good projectile character takes no mechanical skill at all and that it's so easy, because no, it's not. Being great at Hanzo takes a lot of work. But for the average player, they don't really see that. And for the average player, I think they just kind of think that, all these shots are luck. This isn't very fun to play against at all. But on the other hand, when you're playing against HITSCAN, a lot of times people will think that you're doing well. They will think that you're really good at the game. And a lot of times I think people, when they're looking at HITSCAN in competitive or mainly esports, the Overwatch League, it can really inspire them to want to play that character and to want to play that role because it feels like an achievable goal. It feels like you can become better at McCree, get better aim, and eventually maybe kind of catch up to where this player is, compared to, again, a lot of the projectile characters where essentially you're just basing most of your damage off of predictions, which most players can't really do way too well, or off of just superior positioning, which a lot of players don't really like to have to, think that that's the only way to get better. That's just kind of how it works. Overall, I think that if HITSCAN are some of the best characters, it just makes more people want to become better at the game and really pushes a lot of people to try to work harder. And mainly just makes so that, people aren't complaining that all the best characters in the game right now are just based off of lucky shots, and really they aren't hard at all, but I'm just getting unlucky with them, and I can't carry with Junkrat because I'm just unlucky. I feel like, yeah, that doesn't really happen with HITSCAN, and overall, having a lot of projectile characters be extremely strong, I think does create a somewhat toxic environment in that way, and doesn't really push way too much of a positive, mechanical environment. Now, I do want to also say right here that I think that in general, people are going to agree that playing against HITSCAN feels more fair than being spammed at with projectiles. I'm going to mention right here that technically it kind of is less fair because, if you are a HITSCAN player that is a god, that, let's say you even have aimbot or something, you're never going to miss a shot, so what's really the counterplay to that compared to dodging some projectiles? But when you're actually in a game, I think most players can agree that playing against projectiles, being spammed at and being randomly one-shot is definitely a lot more annoying to play against than playing against a HITSCAN that hits, maybe 50 to 60% of their shots, which is what's going to be happening in the majority of the ranks, even up to Masters. That's kind of where it's going to be. Again, technically speaking, maybe HITSCAN could possibly be more annoying to be playing against, but in actual terms, I think it's probably one of the things that people feel as the most fair way of damage coming out. And a lot of the characters, again, like McCree and Soldier, and, to some point Widowmaker, but she's kind of debatable, are a decent amount less annoying to go against. Now, I think I'm going to kind of continue with this, is that, in general, I think, again, yes, HITSCAN damage is more consistent, but also they do a decent amount less damage per shot. And a lot of the times it feels like you can't really just be randomly one-shot or randomly two-shot. And yeah, sometimes projectile deaths feel okay, but I think especially with the recent Hanzo changes that we've been having, that we've had to play with for a while now, getting randomly one-shot from halfway across the map by Hanzo, who's debatably the best DPS in the entire game, so you're going to see him all the time, it's really not that fun to play against, and I think a lot of players are really kind of frustrated with that, while at the same token, playing against, a lot of the HITSCAN characters, that doesn't really apply as much. Now, as well with this, I think a thing that is slightly less annoying about a lot of the HITSCAN is that they don't really have infinite range. They don't really have very little amount of damage fall off. They do have a lot of damage fall off. It does feel like you can kind of run away from them. It does feel like, well, you can kind of dive on them and not get one shot, while with a lot of projectile characters, it feels like, especially against like Junkrat and Hanzo, I mean, if you're Genji or Tracer and you jump on them, maybe they'll just get lucky and one-shot you, and that just kind of sucks. While if you're playing against someone like a soldier that happens to kill you, well, that feels kind of fair. And even though it might not actually be fair, it's debatable, it feels that way. And I think the way that people feel in a competitive game, kind of pushes a narrative that, is beneficial. If the game does feel fair, then a lot more people will continue to play, and a lot more people will continue to be not frustrated while playing. But, a lot of projectile characters are very frustrating, and having them be the best characters for quite a while, which is what we've had so far, is quite annoying to play against. And I think the thing that's more important than, not being fun to play against even, might be the fact that it's not way too fun to watch. And I think for a while now, people have just kind of not wanted to watch a lot of competitive gameplay. I know a lot of people that have just kind of not wanted to watch esports for a while because it's, every single game, whoever gets the first lucky pick pretty much wins. I don't know. It just feels like in a lot of cases, there's just not nearly as much interaction or inspection of the game. And for a lot of people, whoever gets the first lucky pick again wins the game. And who honestly cares at that point? And while, that might not actually be the case, and while certain projectile characters and certain projectile players are obviously much better than others, that doesn't mean that the players in the community and the possible spectators in the community won't get kind of bored with this. Now, another thing I want to mention right here is, the metas that are created, and I think in general, HITSCAN kind of stops a lot of the annoying metas from existing, and in a lot of cases, you can kind of buff them up a little bit to make a lot of the really annoying metas become a little bit worse. I mean, if you have a super annoying tank meta, maybe you could buff up Reaper, which they haven't really done ever, but you could maybe do that. If you have really annoying far range meta with people like Pharah and Junkrat, maybe you could buff up some damage that could beat out shields with, probably Soldier, or maybe even McCree, or maybe even Bastion. Overall, I feel like there's definitely a lot more options with this role than the other role, and I think the number one reason why I really do enjoy HITSCAN being the best is that it is very easy to change the values of this role, and it's very easy to make so that this role is somewhat balanced, and so that it isn't just completely way better than everything else, because you can one by one change the damage values of just about everything in a HITSCAN, and it can be a pretty good way to balance it. Now, let's say, for example, you make so that every one of Soldier's bullets do 2 less damage. Well, that's going to make him quite a bit worse, but at the same time, you could still balance that to a certain degree, where he's still better than a lot of the other DPS characters, but he's not way too overpowered. And I think that's something you can do with kind of all the HITSCAN. You can make him do a little bit less damage or a little bit more damage every single patch, fix him up like that, and make so that they can kind of stay at the same place of the totem pole almost no matter what. Now, if you compare that to someone like Hanzo again, that isn't really how it works. Essentially how it's been for a while now is that Hanzo either AP one-shots everybody and is extremely overpowered, or he's just kind of terrible. And with the newest rework, which essentially made him almost into a HITSCAN, let's be real here, they did kind of fix a lot of the stuff with that, but still, he does have some big problems, and it's still very hard to balance him. I think the number one hardest thing to balance is one-shot headshot. You can't really nerf that. You can't really change Hanzo's numbers, because if you do, he'll kind of lose his main role and his main purpose, and I think that is a big problem to Overwatch competitive, and that's again why I think having HITSCAN be the best is really good for balance, for esports, for interest, just for a lot of different reasons. Overall, though, as always, this was just my own personal opinion about what different roles should be the best in the game, and yeah, this was 100% my own opinion. I'm sure a lot of you guys have a completely different opinion, especially since HITSCAN hasn't been that great for a little bit. There's probably less HITSCAN players playing, so there's probably more projectile ones playing, which are probably going to, support projectile characters. So, I guess we're going to kind of have to see with that. But anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Maybe I'm just stuck a little bit too far into the past as well. I have played since Season 1 of Overwatch. I do remember playing with a very good Soldier, a very good McCree, a very good Bastion, and maybe I'm looking back with a bit too much rose-tinted glasses. Maybe those weren't the best metas, but I don't know. Maybe they were. Anyways, as always, guys, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like, hit the subscribe button, or as always, hit that notification button, and make sure to actually put it on the all notifications, because if you didn't know, YouTube now has the setting where you can get just some of the notifications, which really overall is a great thing. As always, guys, though, thank you all for watching, and have a wonderful day.